Hi, I'm Montana here at Jamestown Settlement to talk about the early Africans and their descendants in the 17th century Virginia. While records exist that show movement of Africans from African ports to the Americas, very few records exist that tell us who these people were, their names, where they lived, what they did, and the families they had, and the stories they told. We're going to look at a few stories today, but remember, these are the exceptions, those that stood out in the English records for one reason or another. First, we have Angelo. Angelo stands out because of one word: treasure. In 1624, King James I ordered Virginia's leaders to make a record of the colony's inhabitants and provisions. What was known as a muster, this list provided information such as household members' names and what year they arrived, and even the name of the ship they came on. Under the entries for the plantation of William Pierce of Jamestown, we find Angela, a Negro woman, in the treasurer. Because we know the treasurer's last stop to Jamestown was in 1619, bringing the first recorded Africans, that small note gives Angelo the distinction of being the earliest arrived African who is named in the records. Unfortunately, that is where her story stops for now. We don't know how long she lived with the Pierces, what her specific role was, or if she had a family. What we do know is that she must have been strong, a survivor. To still be alive at the time of the muster, we know she survived the passage across the ocean. We know she survived the Powhatan Uprising of 1622, and we know she survived at least 5 years of laboring for the English. We can imagine she lived long enough to have a family and pass on her stories and culture to them. And hopefully her name can stand as a testament today to her strength and resilience. Now let's move on to a couple who defied the odds as Africans in 17th century Virginia, the free landowning Anthony and Mary Johnson. We know again from the 1624 muster that on the Bennett plantation was Antonio, a Negro who arrived on the James in 1621, and Mary, a Negro woman who arrived on the Margaret and John in 1622. We know that by the 1640s, the now Anthony and Mary Johnson were living on their own land in the eastern shore of Virginia with their family. On the 24th of July, 1651, Anthony acquired 250 acres of land under the headright system by buying the contracts of 5 indentured servants, one of whom was his son Richard Johnson. In 1652, an unfortunate fire caused great losses for the family, and Johnson applied to the courts for tax relief. The courts reduced the family's taxes and exempted his wife and 2 daughters from paying taxes at all during their natural lives. It is unclear why the Johnson women were exempt, but the change gave them the same social standing as white women who were not taxed. During the case, the justice noticed that the Johnsons have lived inhabitants in Virginia about 30 years and were respected for their hard labor and known service. In 1665, the Johnson family sold their 200 acres of land of the 250 they owned and moved to Maryland, where they leased 300-acre tract of land that the family named Tony's Vineyard. Anthony died in 1670. Mary renegotiated the lease of the 300 acres in Maryland for another 99 years. Not only that, but Mary, a free tax-exempt African-born woman, had her own will, in which she left cows to her sons. So here we have 2 names, Mary and Anthony, who could have been just 2 more names on the list of Africans sent across the sea. But when all the odds were stacked against them, they found a way to forge a new path and create a new destiny for themselves and their families. For our last story, let's look at someone who defied the odds, but this time was born in Virginia. Elizabeth Key was born in 1630 to Thomas Key, and an enslaved African woman. When Elizabeth was 6 years old, Thomas put her in the custody of Humphreys Higginson by 9-year indenture, and which time she should have been free. Unfortunately, her father died, and at the age of 10, Elizabeth was sold to Colonel John Mottram, for whom she worked for another 15 years. When Mottram died in 1655, The overseers of estate classified Elizabeth Key and her infant son as Negroes, and essentially as slaves and as part of the property assets of the estate, with William Grinstead, an indentured servant, and Elizabeth's English common law husband acting as her attorney. She sued the estate over her status, claiming she was a free woman, an indentured servant who had served past her term and who had a freeborn son. She was the daughter of an Englishman and a baptized Christian. The case worked its way up the system until reaching the Virginia General Assembly, which sent the case back to the courts for retrial, where she won her freedom because English common law said, status of the fathers determines the status of the child. Additionally, Christians were not to enslave fellow baptized Christians. Elizabeth's story is important as it demonstrates how the courts could be used to escape enslavement. In time, Reasons Q1 would be invalidated by lawmakers. Furthermore, in 1691, they passed a law making mixed-race marriages illegal. This law was not overturned until 1967 in Loving versus Virginia in the Supreme Court. So what have we learned from these three unique stories? That resilience, hard work, and tenacity are human attributes that withstand the test of time. And hopefully, as historians and archaeologists turn more focus to these early Africans in Virginia, we will be able to learn more of their stories and gain a greater appreciation for their contributions to the American story. Hope you liked today's video. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment, and come visit our museums. We'd love to see you.